Episode 2, Humanity. Flashback. Lincoln is playing the guitar as we see everything he's lost and everything he's done to get here. We see Hayley walk in and she says, "Hey, you disappeared after supper. Where'd you go?" Lincoln says, "Oh, just been thinking about the run tomorrow." Hayley says, "You going?" Lincoln puts his guitar away and says, "Yeah, me, Tom, and Sydney are gonna go tomorrow." Hayley says, "Anything on those people lately?" Lincoln says, "Oh, no, nothing. But if that changes, I'll be sure to let you know." Hayley says, "Well, come out if you wanna. I'll be at Tom's." And she walks out and Lincoln says, "I'll be right there." Hayley says, "All right." And she walks out of the house and Lincoln sits back down and starts playing the guitar. As the guitar starts up again, we cut to the present day. Blake is crying and Hayley looks pissed as she is looking at the message written in Sam's blood, and she hears on the walkie someone back at the ranch saying, "Hayley, do you copy?" Hayley picks up the walkie in a panic and the person on the walkie asks, "Did you find Blake?" Hayley looks hesitant, but she says, Yeah, I found him. But Frank, I need you to do something for me." Frank responds, "What's going on?" "You need to get everybody ready. The Vipers are We see an explosion from far. Hayley sees this and panics and knows it's coming from the ranch and says, Frank, are you there?" There's no response from Frank, and Hayley looks back at Blake and says, "We gotta go," as they both run back home as fast as they can. But we see the Vipers are following them back from behind. Back at the mall, we see the roof cracking and the sound of a blizzard outside, as we are back where we left off, but now in Kezia's perspective. Kezia falls off the railing into the floor. We see her leg is bleeding and she is trying to run from the dead. She tries to go back up the escalator, but she is blocked off. She tries to run, but every direction she goes, she is cut off. She kills as many deadheads as she possibly can, and then she is limping down a hall and trying to get away from the dead. Kesia is hurt, but she's limping down the hall, and she's desperately trying to find somewhere away from the dead. On the other end of the mall with Tom and the others, We see Tom and Sydney and the rest of the group are running down the halls and they are killing a bunch of deadheads on their way by, and they are trying to clear the path to the supermarket. Tom looks back and Sydney takes out her knife out of a deadhead and she says, "Hey, he'll be back, okay?" Tom looks back and says, "It's not him I'm worried about." And then we hear the roof is starting to crack. Sydney looks at Tom in a panic and says, "Look, we're running out of time, okay? This storm is gonna get worse, and when it does, that roof is coming down. But whatever food is left, we have to get. And then we find Lincoln and the others and we get the hell out of here because that roof is not gonna hold much longer, okay? Are you with me?" Tom looks back at her and he says, "Always am. Always." And then she looks at the others and she says, "All right, the sign I saw earlier says that we take a right, and then we go down the next hallway, and then we take another right, and we're there." Tom says, "All right, let's go," as they run down this dark hallway. Back at the ranch. We see a guard on watch. You hear nothing but silence and the cold wind blowing. And then we see the guy named Frank that we heard earlier, and he's standing on the tower with another guy named Mike. And Mike says, "She said she'd be back by now." "Yeah, I know," Frank replies, and he picks up the walkie and he radios in. "Hayley, you copy? Did you find Blake?" Hayley responds in a very panicked manner. "Yeah, I found him. But Frank, I need you to do something for me." Frank responds, "What's going on?" "You need to get everybody ready. The Vipers are..." Out of nowhere, the tower gets blown up and kills both of them. We see one of the barns blow up, and we see everyone inside of the ranch is running for their lives. We see over 100 Vipers running in and killing everyone that is running out of their homes. We see Miles is in front and he shoots a few of them, and then in slow motion, he pulls out his sword and starts slicing people's heads off. He even kills a young boy that is just trying to run away. Hayley and Blake are running through the woods in a panic, trying to get back, but Steven and 4 other Vipers are chasing them from behind. We see them running in the woods. A Viper throws a knife at Hayley, but it slightly misses and hits a tree, and Blake then pulls out his gun and starts shooting a few shots back. He kills one of the Vipers, but then he keeps running with Hayley. We see Steven say to his men, "Stop! We aren't losing our lives over them. We're gonna let them go back home. And then, when everyone's inside, we'll kill everyone together." That's a really touching story, wouldn't you say, gentlemen? The other Vipers nod and Steven says, "So let's go," as they go towards the ranch. Back at the mall. Kezia is limping down the hall when all of a sudden she gets blocked off by what is another group of the dead. She then goes left and enters one of the stores and tries to shut the door so the dead can't get at her. We see she has now locked herself in, and she is looking everywhere for a way out. She's looking through the store, but there is nothing of use. And then she sees the door out back that leads her to the utility room. She is still limping, and it is so dark in there that she can't see, and she can't tell what's ahead of her. She walks down the hall and finds old boxes, but nothing useful. She keeps moving down the hall and is trying to find a way out. She gets jumped by a deadhead. The deadhead is grabbing at her feet and Kezia is trying to get her off of her, but the reanimated is about to bite her. Then Lincoln comes in and kills the deadhead and saves her life. He helps Kezia up and says, "Thank God I found you." Kezia says, "Oh my God," and she hugs him and says, "How'd you get in?" Lincoln says, "I came through here trying to make my way through instead of going through those goddamn hallways. And I heard the screams. All I found was this." As he gives her her bow and arrow back, and she takes it and she thanks him. Lincoln then says, "I didn't know if you made it. And I saw what he did to you," meaning Jay. And Kezia says, "The son of a bitch shot me. You have to get him. If he tried to kill me, who knows what he'll do when he meets up with Tom and the others." Lincoln stops her and says, "I killed him." Kezia looks shocked, but she also looks relieved, and she says, "Well, he was planning on taking both of us out." Lincoln says, "He was nothing but a coward that deserved to die." They then hear the sound of the roof starting to break, and Kezia says, "There's not much time, and those people need that food. And you take me with you? And it's gonna take twice as long." Lincoln looks at her and says, "What are you trying to say?" Kezia says, "Just leave me behind." Lincoln says, "No." Kezia says, "Lincoln, our people could die if we don't get out of here soon, and there's no time to argue. Just leave. I know it's hard, but just leave me behind." Lincoln looks at her in the eyes and says, "No." Lincoln just, "No! I'm not leaving you. We set out to do this, and we're gonna finish this. And if you slow me down, I still rather you slow me down and then leaving you behind to die. Maybe Jay left you behind, but that's not who I am." And he looks at her and says, "That's not who we are. You hear me?" And he helps Kezia up, and they escape the utility room together, and they are on their way to go find the rest of the group. Back at the ranch. The Vipers are shooting everyone on sight. Miles takes out his sword out of a resident's head, and then they are about to enter the ranch house. As we reveal, Hayley and Blake are back. Hayley starts shooting Viper after Viper and then reloads. Blake and Hayley are defending the house and shooting as many of Miles' men as possible. Miles and the others fire back, and Hayley and Blake take cover. Blake says, "We gotta get the hell out of here. These people are not gonna stop until we're all dead." Hayley says, "All right, how many mags you got left?" Blake says, 4 left in this one and then 2 more after that." Hayley says, "All right, make them count. There's families in this house, children scared to death, and the rest have been murdered. That is not happening to the rest of these people. And it's time to face reality here. This place is gonna fall. So I need you to cover me. You need to protect this house. Make sure none of them get in. And while you defend the house, I make a run for the armory. We took all those guns from the base when we left. And right now is a hell of a big reason to be using them. And when I come back, and you're gonna know when I come back, I'll buy you enough time to get these poor people out of here. Can you do that for me?" Blake looks at her and says, "What about you? If you think I'm leaving you behind, you're sadly..." Hayley interrupts and says, "Look, we don't do this, all of our people are gonna die tonight. I need someone I know will get them out of here safe, no matter what. And that's you, okay? You're the only one I can trust to get these families to safety." It's what Lincoln would do. Blake then nods, and then Hayley runs, and he covers her as she runs towards the armory. Blake covers her for as long as he can until she gets close enough to the armory. We see him reload and the Vipers are firing back. We see the Vipers are going around slaughtering a bunch of the residents, and we see another barn blow up. Hayley then makes it to the armory. She grabs a bag and starts loading it with pistols and rifles. She grabs several boxes of bullets, and then she's getting ready to escape. Then, you hear a gun click behind her. The Viper says, "Drop it, and turn around with your hands up." Hayley turns around and the Viper says, "You asked for this. You and your people took our brothers from us. You took everything that we..." Hayley interrupts and says, "You took my children and my family. So don't start with your we're innocent bullshit." And the Viper says, "Well, good for you, 'cause you're about to see your kids again." She then knocks the gun out of his hands and kicks him in the leg, and he goes down. Once he's down, she takes her knife out and sticks it through his throat, all the way to the other side of his neck. And as the Viper is bleeding out, she picks up the bag and she says, "Your brothers, huh? You may want to save your tears, 'cause I'm just getting started." Back in the mall. Tom, Sydney, and the others have now made it to the supermarket, but as they see, the supermarket is flooded with a couple dozen deadheads, and they are all banging at the door. We hear the roof is cracking at the top of the mall, and the storm outside is getting worse, and Sydney says, "Son of a bitch." "All right, we have no other choice," Tom says. "Lucy, Gord, keep an eye out down the halls. Make sure there's no more reanimated coming our way." And they say, "Got it." And then Sydney and the rest of them pull out their weapons, and Tom is about to open the door, and he says, "All right, we ready?" Luke nods, and Tom opens the door. They kill one after another. We see them killing a bunch of the deadheads, and then Lucy and Gord run up to them, and Lucy says, "Guys, there's more dead coming up the halls." Tom kills a few more, and Sydney says, "All right, we go in, grab what we can, and we go. We don't have much time left, now let's go." And then we see them make it through the dead and enter the store. Everyone spreads out and grabs as much food and supplies that they can fit in their bags. We see them grabbing all the food that they can, but there's not much left on the shelves. They all grab the food that's left, and then they all meet up at the front. And as they're all about to leave the supermarket, the dead that were down the hall are now at the door. They quickly close the doors and they have to lock themselves in. We see at the very least over 100 deadheads are banging at the door, and we hear the roof once again is starting to crack. There is not much time left and they are all in a panic. And Tom stands there and he says, "Well, I think it's safe to say we're totally fucked." Back at the ranch, we see more explosions. All we see is blood in the streets and the dead bodies all around, as we're back with Blake. Blake is still covering the house. He's got 5 bullets left and there's still 20 Vipers shooting at him. He fires one more shot and then we see the look of fear in his eyes. Blake fires his last bullets. The Vipers are about to get in the house, and he has no more bullets to stop them. We then see all of the Vipers get blown up. as we reveal Hayley blew them up with a rocket launcher and saved his life. As Hayley is ready to fire another one, Blake knows that that's the signal to get everyone out of there. As we see the Vipers are scattering, Hayley then keeps killing a bunch of Vipers, and they are now running for their lives. Hayley sees a bunch of them running to their trucks in front, and she tries to go after them, trying to make sure that none of these Vipers get away. She loads another rocket. She blows up the rest of the Vipers that try to get in their vehicles and drive away. Blake has gotten the families out safe. We see one of the mothers named Jill says to Blake as they're walking, "Hey, thank you." Blake says, "Hey, after all this, you don't need to thank me for anything. You lost your home, and maybe that wouldn't be the case if I didn't leave like a jerk." Jill says, "You were trying to save lives, and you didn't even care about yourself, and that's more of enough of a reason to say thank you." And we see Blake has the smallest smile on his face after hearing that. We see they've been walking for a while trying to get to safety. The kids look cold, and Blake then sees from up the hill an old church from far. Blake points at it and says, "There." And they then walk down to the church for a place to hold up for now. Back in the mall. Tom, Sydney, and the rest are all trapped in the mall. Tom is saying to Sydney, "I'm sorry. I know you wanted it to work, but look at them. Everyone's tired. We already had empty stomachs when we came in, and with the little time that we have before that roof comes down, and how many deadheads are out there, we'll die in seconds." Luke gets up and says, "Maybe not. Come on, people! Think about the shit that we've done. The people we've killed. The ones we saved. We took down an entire factory of those murderers. And we are the protectors of that ranch. And most importantly, to take down Chris, we teamed up with the biggest dickhead of all time just to do it." And we see Tom looks like he agrees, and Luke says, "Whoever stays here, dies. And after all we've been through, there's no hard feelings if that's what you choose." And he pulls out his knife and says, "Now I'm doing this, and we are getting out. Who's with me?" Tom gets up and picks up his axe and says, "Let's bust these motherfuckers." And Sydney gets up and everyone pulls out their weapons, and Luke is about to open the door. And Tom says, "All right, 3, 2, 1. The door opens and everyone joins together to kill all of these deadheads all together. As we see them killing a bunch of them, but they all look terrified and tired, as they all look defeated, and more deadheads are just coming, and it won't stop coming for them. We see someone mowing down a bunch of the dead. Lincoln and Kezia come in and save their lives. Kezia kills a bunch of them with her bow. Lincoln is mowing down a bunch of them with Jay's old machine gun. Once the dead are all killed, Lincoln yells, "Come on, we gotta get the hell out of here!" We see them running, and the roof is about to break and collapse on all of them. They find the exit door and they all escape the mall together. And as we see them leave the mall, about 20 seconds later, the glass breaks and the roof comes down, just narrowly as our group got away. We see Hayley walking through the streets, looking at the destroyed ranch all around her. She starts to cry and she sees little kids, mothers, fathers, people she knew, just laying there dead. We see her walking through and she starts walking out. She is leaving this place behind as you see her turn around one last time and looks back at the ranch, and she watches it burn as she walks out to go find her family. As she leaves the ranch behind. They made it back to the RV. And Luke is looking at all the food that they found, and Sydney says, well, it's not much, but it's a start. Luke says, we'll make it work. And we see Tom say to Lincoln, we head out in 5. Lincoln nods, and then he walks over to Kezia, and Kezia says, we barely made it. Lincoln says, but we did. Kezia says, look, I wanted to thank you and tell you were right about what you said back there. Lincoln says, for what? Kesia says, you could have left me back there. You would have had every reason to. You didn't give up on me, even when I was ready to give up on myself. Lincoln taps her on the shoulder this time and says, that's what family's for. And we see Tom says, the storm is about to get really bad. We should find a place to hold up until it passes. Lincoln, what do you think, brother? It's your call. Lincoln says, all right, we'll stop at that train station a few miles back. Ride this out. Tom says, all right, let's go. Back with Blake. We see all of the families and everyone are just trying to stay warm inside of the church. Blake won't stop looking out the window in fear that Hayley is not coming. We then hear a knock at the church door. The families look scared because they don't know who just knocked. Blake pulls out his gun, and then we see, as he opens the door, it's Hayley. Blake lowers the gun and hugs her, and he asks her if she's okay, and she says, yeah, I'm fine. Do you still have your walkie? Blake says, yeah. And he gives it to her, and she says, we gotta reach Lincoln, now. He has to know what's going on. And as she tries to radio Lincoln, we hear the church bells ringing. Hayley, Blake, and the families look scared. Hayley says, we gotta go, now. The Vipers are gonna find us. We then see Miles, Steven, and the last remaining 8 Vipers pulling up outside of the church, and the last Vipers that got out alive. Hayley looks out the window and she sees them standing outside of the church. Miles pulls out his sword, and they are all standing outside of the church with their guns out, and they are ready to kill all of them. Steven asks, we doing this? Miles says, the bloodiest, most brutal wars fought. All based on religious hatred, which is fine with me. Anytime a bunch of holy people want to go out and kill each other, I'm a damn happy guy. As he has a huge smile on his face. Back with Lincoln. Lincoln and the others make it to the railroad station. Everyone steps out, and we see Lincoln says, "We'll stay here till the storm passes." As we see everyone just sit down, and they finally are all taking a breather. But then, Tom sees footprints in the snow. Tom shows this to Lincoln, and Tom says, "Lincoln, come take a look at this." Lincoln takes a close look at this and says, "Yeah, someone's been here. The tracks are new." And we see Sydney and Tom look very concerned, and Sydney says, "We need to go, now." Out of nowhere, Gord gets shot in the head, and the blood splashes all over Lincoln's face, and Lincoln yells, "Scatter, now!" We see a couple dozen military soldiers driving in a truck. Soldier 1 says, "It's getting late. We should probably go home. All those gunshots, the fires, the smoke, can't be good." Soldier 2 says, "We gotta make sure it's not them. The boss told us to make sure no Vipers get anywhere near home." Soldier 1 says, we should still update everyone just in case." Soldier 2 says, "Yeah, you're right. Tell the boss we're coming back." Soldier 1 says, "You got it." As he picks up his walkie, and then they hear church bells ringing. Soldier 1 says, "What the hell is that?" All the soldiers get out of their trucks, and they all see the church from a distance, with all of the Vipers around, and one of them has a sniper rifle, and they spot Miles from far. And the sniper says, "That's the bastard right there." And Soldier 1 says, "We hit him now. Eliminate all." Soldier 2 says, "All right, let's get ready. I'll contact the boss." And Soldier 2 walks off for a sec, and he radios their boss and says, "This is Lieutenant Roy. Does anybody copy?" A soldier on the walkie responds, "Are you all safe?" Soldier 2 says, "Yeah. The pricks that attacked us. Tell Mr. Miller that we found him."